Neuroscience Thesis idea, Emergent Autonomy. What if autonomy isn't all or nothing? In this thesis idea, we challenge the assumption that free will is a binary condition. Neuroscience often treats autonomy as something you either have or don't. But Darwin's Machines 2024 introduces a new perspective. Autonomy can emerge in stages. Even simple organisms may exhibit early forms of choice when their behavior is shaped by internal states or competing signals. This video outlines a clear, testable model that reframes autonomy as a spectrum and gives neuroscience students a foundation for experimental research that connects behavior, biology, and information systems. Why neuroscience struggles with autonomy. Neuroscience often treats autonomy as all or nothing. Either a system has it or it doesn't. But when you compare a simple organism to one that's only slightly more complex, where do you draw the line? If autonomy is binary, then every threshold becomes arbitrary and nearly impossible to defend. That's why we need a better model, one that sees autonomy as something that emerges gradually through system-wide networks that store, process, and transmit information signals. Emergent autonomy, 3 stages, A, B, C. To move beyond the binary problem, Darwin's Machines 2024 introduces a discrete, information-based model of autonomy, illustrated in 3 conceptual stages. The ABC model, presented here, is a conceptual bridge, not a fixed framework. It helps us visualize the continuum of autonomy and free will as it emerges across systems. It starts with basic reflexes, direct stimulus-response behavior. Then it adds internal modulation, where signals are filtered through memory or internal state. And finally, it reaches conflict resolution, where multiple inputs compete and the system selects an outcome. This model defines autonomy as a layered property that emerges from how organisms store, process, and transmit information, not as a binary benchmark, but as a structured continuum of decision-making capacity. Stage A, simple reflex. Stage A is the simplest form of behavior, a direct stimulus triggering an immediate response. There's no internal processing, no modulation, and no delay. It's purely reactive, like pulling your hand away from a hot surface, or a light-sensitive cell moving toward brightness. This base layer is always present. Even in the most complex organisms, reflexes remain active. What changes with autonomy is how these reflexes are selected, suppressed, or coordinated to serve a higher goal. Stage B, modulated reflex. Stage B introduces internal modulation. The response depends on more than just the stimulus. Internal conditions now shape the signal as it passes through the system. For example, a stimulus might trigger movement only if the organism is hungry, or only at a certain time of day. Internal modulators like hormones, temperature, or energy levels act as filters, gating when and how reflexes activate. Stage B creates conditional behavior. Reflexes are now regulated by internal state. Stage C, emergent autonomy. Stage C represents a turning point, where complexity begins to look like choice. As systems grow, they accumulate more inputs, more internal modulators, and more signal interactions. These elements combine, competing, cooperating, or amplifying across a growing network of conditional pathways. The result isn't just a reaction or a filtered reflex, it's a coordinated outcome shaped by integrated subsystems that filter, buffer, route, and transform information as it moves through the network. The more complex the system, the more its responses become decoupled from the environment. This is where autonomy begins to operate as true choice, not because a switch is flipped, but because structural complexity allows the system to control which inputs shape its behavior. Build your thesis on emergent autonomy. This model isn't just a thought experiment, it's a launchpad for real research. You're getting a testable framework for autonomy with a structure you can simulate, analyze, or apply to real systems. This work bridges neuroscience, systems biology, and information theory, creating a unified research space filled with open questions. Can you define measurable indicators of autonomy? Can you describe how information flow and internal regulation evolve as complexity increases? Your thesis could formalize the metrics and help shape a new field. Start with Darwin's Machines 2024, cite it as the origin, then make a winning thesis.